In this section of the course, we're going to cover cloud governance. As we go through this section, we'll be focused inside of Domain 1, which is Cloud Concepts, Objective 1.1, but most of our time will be spent in Domain 4, Governance, Risk, Compliance, and Security for the Cloud, with Objectives 4.1, 4.2, and 4.3 being our focus. Objective 1.1 states that you must be able to explain cloud principles, so we will learn some of the basic cloud governance concepts. We will also cover Objective 4.1, which states that you must be able to recognize risk management concepts related to cloud services. Objective 4.2, which states you must be able to explain policies or procedures, and Objective 4.3 that states you must be able to identify the importance and impacts of compliance in the cloud. Now, as we begin this section, we will first focus our discussions on some basic cloud governance concepts and how they apply to the 5 cloud characteristics of on-demand self-service, broad network access, resource pooling, rapid elasticity, and measured services. We will also discuss how the cloud governance concepts apply to the 3 cloud service models of software as a service, platform as a service, and infrastructure as a service. Then, we will quickly look at how governance applies to the 4 cloud deployment models of public, private, hybrid, and community cloud deployment models. Next, we will discuss risk assessments, which include a 5-step risk assessment process, the method used to classify risk, how to conduct asset inventory, and the concepts surrounding data ownership. The 5-step risk assessment process involves identifying the risk, analyzing and evaluating the risk, determining the level of risk, mitigating the risk, and monitoring and reviewing the risk. In order to classify risks, they are typically placed into categories based on their severity and potential impact on the organization. Conducting an asset inventory is an essential part of risk assessment and involves identifying and documenting all assets within the organization that could be a risk. The concept of data ownership is an important factor to consider when conducting risk assessments, as it involves identifying who has access to the data and who is responsible for securing it. Then we will discuss risk response, which are ways to manage risk once they have been identified. There are 4 risk response strategies that an organization can use to address risk: risk mitigation, risk avoidance, risk transfer, and risk acceptance. Risk mitigation involves taking action to reduce the probability and/or impact of risk. Risk avoidance involves eliminating the risk by changing the project plan or business process. Risk transfer involves shifting the risk to another party, typically through an insurance policy or contract. Risk acceptance involves accepting the risk and creating a contingency plan for when the risk event occurs. By understanding these risk response strategies, an organization can make informed decisions about how to manage the risk that it faces. After that, we will discuss risk documentation, including risk registers, vendor lock-in, and data portability. Next, we will discuss compliance and standards in the cloud, including a discussion on data sovereignty, regulatory concerns, and international standards and certifications. Data sovereignty refers to the laws and regulations that apply to the storage and processing of data in a particular country. It is important to understand where your data is stored and who has access to it to ensure compliance with the local regulations. Regulatory concerns in the cloud include meeting the requirements of various regulatory bodies that govern specific industries, such as HIPAA for healthcare or PCI DSS for payment card information. International standards such as ISO 27001 provide a framework for implementing and maintaining an effective information security management system. Certifications such as SOC 2 and FedRAMP demonstrate that a cloud service provider has undergone a vigorous audit process to ensure compliance with industry-specific standards and regulations. Understanding compliance and standards in the cloud is crucial for organizations to maintain the security and privacy of their data. Then we will cover standard operating procedures, also known as SOPs. Standard operating procedures are specific step-by-step procedural documents for standard tasks. The use of SOPs can help reduce errors, mistakes, and misconfigurations while operating in the cloud. After that, we will discuss the management policies such as change management and resource management policies. Change management is a structured approach to ensure that changes to an organization's IT infrastructure are made in a controlled and coordinated manner. This policy defines the procedures that must be followed for making changes, including the assessment of potential impact, approval process, testing and implementation, and backup procedures in case something goes wrong. Resource management policies, on the other hand, define how resources are allocated, monitored, and managed across the organization. This includes policies related to capacity planning, performance monitoring, and the allocation of resources such as storage, CPU, and memory to various applications and services. By implementing effective management policies, organizations can ensure that their IT infrastructure is secure, efficient, and operating at peak performance. Next, we will cover the impact policies such as security policy and incident response policy, the access control policy, the communication policies, and any department-specific policies that may be used in your organization. The first policy we want to discuss is the security policy, which defines the standards, procedures, and guidelines for safeguarding information, assets, and IT systems. The second policy is the incident response policy, which is used to outline the steps taken in the event of security incident or breach, including how to investigate and respond to security threats. The third policy we will cover is access control policy, which is used to ensure that only authorized personnel have access to sensitive data and IT systems. The fourth policy, the communication policy, is used to establish guidelines for secure and efficient communications within an organization. The fifth group of policies we will cover are department-specific policies, since these are often used to implement different things within different areas of our organization, depending on the nature of the work and the type of data that's being handled. These policies ensure that departments are aligned with the overall security objectives of the organization and that they are compliant with relevant regulations and standards. Finally, we will perform a quick demonstration so you can see how these cloud principles are applied in the real world, and then we will take a short quiz to see what you learned during this section of the course. Then we'll review each of those quiz questions to fully ensure that you can explain why the right answers were right and why the wrong answers were wrong. So let's get ready to dive into cloud governance in this section of the course.